Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ice Cold Takes podcast. I'm your host, Joe DeMeglio. If you missed it on Wednesday, Barclay Goodrow was claimed off waivers by the San Jose Sharks, meaning his full cap hit has come off the books for the Rangers. Gutsy move by general manager Chris Drury. And today I'll break that down and more. All right. So, Goodrow, $3.641 million cap hit. It was the subject of a lot of scrutiny. He was the subject of a lot of scrutiny this year and previous years, because we live in a cap world in hockey, and the Rangers had trouble making moves. Pretty much the way it turned out when they acquired Goodrow was they acquired him in place of Pavel Buchnevich, who they traded to the Blues because of a cap crunch. And now the Rangers are finally rid of that $3.6 million cap hit. It's fully gone completely. They didn't have to give up anything. This wasn't like a Mark Stahl trade or a Patrick Nemeth trade where they had to attach assets with Goodrow to get rid of him and get rid of his contract. They placed him on waivers because he had a modified no trade clause. And this, Chris Drury, savage. This is a savage move by him because in all likelihood, Goodrow probably had the Sharks on his no trade list. And the fact that he just passed him through waivers like that to work around a trade, salary retention, or buyout. Incredible. Crazy. That's the kind of move that you need to make. It's a business decision. I know Goodrow played really well in the playoffs. He was one of the Rangers' top performers, especially in the last half of the run. You look at the last game against Carolina, the empty netter, and then the first 3 games against Florida. He came up big with some huge goals, an overtime winner in game 2 against Florida, and then 2 goals in game 3 against Florida, and that second overtime victory. It's a big loss for the Rangers because these are the kinds of players that they need to have, but you can't be paying that much money to fourth line guys. And I'll talk about it in a little bit, but the Rangers have guys in their system that could play that style. That's kind of the way that they're built. That's how Chris Drury drafted them. That's why he drafted them. And so it's not a bad idea if they get the opportunity next year. Now, the problem is we don't know how they're going to be. They might not be ready for the NHL, or they could thrive, but you won't know unless you try. So I think it's a good move by Drury to get him off the books, to get Goodrow off the books, give more of an opportunity to guys like Rempe, Edstrom, Brett Berard, even Brennan Othman. He's probably not going to he's probably not going to crack the top 6 at the first time that he's playing in the NHL. I know he's still technically a rookie, but Othman, you might have to wait a little bit for him. Matt says, "What's up? What's going on, guys? Busy. Been editing that Brady Tkachuk video. And then yesterday I got news about the Markstrom trade to New Jersey, and I had to stop editing, and then it was close to 2:00, so I had to wait for the decision if Goodrow was going to get claimed off waivers. Big shock to see him on waivers on Tuesday. I was not expecting that at all. But again, ballsy move by Chris Drury. And Larry Brooks wrote an article yesterday about it. The headline was Chris Drury's ruthless no trade list call on Barclay Goodrow is the exact approach Rangers need. And Brooksy is nailing it. He's hitting the nail on the head here. He opens the article. I'm reading it. Quote, after speaking to multiple sources on Wednesday, there's widespread belief that Barclay Goodrow had included the Sharks on his 15-team no-trade list that GM Chris Drury got around by placing number 21 on waivers, where San Jose exercised the first claim to take the 2-time Cup winner. This was ruthless, and this is what championship organizations do. Yeah, that is insane. And then he went on to talk about how the Lightning waived Ryan McDonagh. Remember a couple summers ago, they waived him. Nashville picked him up, and then they just traded him back to Tampa Bay. But they had to do it because they needed to keep guys like Point. They needed to get rid of salary. They were really tight up against the cap, and that's unfortunately just the way the NHL world works. And you know what though? In a couple years, teams will be getting a lot of help because the salary cap is going up a lot. What was it this year? It went up $4.5 million. It was 83.5. Now it's $88 million after 3-4 years in a row of just $1 million increases because of COVID. So it's about time that these NHL teams get help. But there's a lot of rebuilding teams as well. So there's a cap floor. There's an upper limit and there's a lower limit, and you have to be at the lower limit to be cap eligible. So I'm gonna go through some of those teams here. So if you go to Cap Friendly, which was purchased by the Washington Capitals, and probably by the start of the regular season, maybe by preseason, Cap Friendly is gonna go dark and you won't be able to access it anymore. So Puckpedia is is gonna be your go-to for that. But if you look at the teams in the NHL, if you sort by projected cap hit, the smallest is Utah, then it's Anaheim. You need to have the lower limit is $65 million. Utah, their projected cap hit is $44.4 million. So they need about $20.5 million to get to the floor. And then let's see how many teams. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's 12 teams that are below the lower limit right now. Now, a lot of those teams just have free agents that they have to re-sign, so they don't have a big roster just yet. But there are a couple of them that have a sizable amount of their roster filled out, and they're not going to need that much salary to re-sign the rest of their players. Teams like Anaheim, they have 16 out of 23 contracts on their roster. Carolina has 19 out of 20, but they're not a rebuilding team. Let's not look at Carolina. Like Nashville, for example, 15 out of 23. You're going to carry it. Most teams carry 21, 22 skaters, so that way they could accrue cap space. Calgary's another one. They're probably not going anywhere next year. Seattle, I don't think they're competing next year. Columbus, that's another rebuilding team. Again, San Jose is at 15 out of 23. Anaheim, Chicago. There's teams that need to take on big salary, which means there is an opportunity for Chris Drury to do the same thing with Jacob Trouba on July 1st, because on July 1st, Jacob Trouba's full no movement clause becomes a modified no trade clause where he submits a 15-team no trade list. So that concept of placing a player on waivers could also apply there. I don't know what the buyout period is though. So let's check real quickly. NHL buyout window 2024. Puckpedia. Okay. All right. So no, the Rangers cannot work around this like this, but they can still trade him. Buyouts can start on the later of June 15th or 48 hours after the playoffs end, and the buyout period ends June 30th at 5 p.m. Eastern. Teams may receive an additional buyout window. If a team has a player go to arbitration and it is either settled or awarded, the team receives a new 48-hour buyout window beginning 3 days after the arbitration settlement or award. The only contracts that are eligible to be bought out in this window are for player with cap hits greater than $4 million, and they were on the team's roster at the last trade deadline. The Rangers have Ryan Lindgren that's arbitration eligible. So if they do go to arbitration with him and whatever happens after that, if let's say they re-sign him, they come to an agreement, 1-year deal, something like that, they could use that as an opportunity to place Trouba on waivers for purposes of buyout if they know someone's going to claim him. Now, if you want to look at a trade, I mean, the only team that I could see that wouldn't mind taking on Trouba, maybe Detroit. and I'm not even 100% certain about that because I know Detroit was in the running when the Rangers acquired him in the 2019 summer, July 2019, around that time when the Rangers selected Kakko second overall. When they made that trade, Trouba was asking for some either New York or Detroit where he's close to home. And Detroit is one of those teams that has a lot of salary cap space, but they do have 10 players that they could sign. Let's look at their free agents here. So they have two, three, three RFAs and one, two, three, four, five, six UFAs there. So 9 players they have to re-sign. They have 5 defensemen under contract. They got to re-sign Mo Seider. Sprong is a free agent. Patrick Kane's a free agent. Lucas Raymond. I don't know if they would want to do that because I mean Raymond might be in line for a long-term extension. Sprong, they might want to keep that guy around. He fits in pretty good there. Mo Seider, obviously, you got to lock him up long term. So if you're dishing out, upwards 10, 12 million, 13, maybe even 15 million to those guys, to Raymond, Sprong, and Seider, like all of that combined, then I don't know if they would be comfortable taking on Jacob Trouba's salary. Because the rest of their team is kind of locked up here. They don't have too many free agents next offseason, so they don't have much salary coming off the books. So I would say no to Detroit, but I still think the Rangers can make something work with one of these teams that is looking for veteran presence, for leadership, because that's what San Jose picked up. They have a lot of young guys. They're not going anywhere next year. You might as well take a flyer and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Get to the cap floor and get some leadership, a big mentor for your younger guys, expected to be first overall pick Macklin Celebrini. So San Jose, I mean, they didn't even have to give up anything. All they had to give up was salary cap space and a roster spot. That's it. Um, Matt says, "I'm happy to see Drury be ruthless. It's needed. He's got to back that up by getting rid of Trouba. If I see him make the right moves, I'll restore some trust in him." Yeah, so Trouba or for Drury, you like the moves he's made so far. He's made it a point to not give up any of his prospects so far in his tenure with the Rangers. The biggest trade is still that Buchnevich trade, and that's the biggest blemish. Really, that first offseason did not work out at all. The players they acquired, they went after Barclay Goodrow. They traded a pick to acquire his rights. They traded Buchnevich for Blay. They traded a pick for Ryan Reeves. None of those players worked out. Goudreau probably the best out of all of them. But Drury, since that trade, hasn't been fleeced yet. He's been very particular about the assets he's given up. The Cop trade, it was a conditional first round pick if the Rangers made it to the conference finals, which meant that it was a pick in the late 20s, early 30s for the team for Winnipeg. So that was fine. The Kane trade, that was he had to give up nothing because Kane made it very obvious that he only wanted to go to the Rangers. The Tarasenko one, I guess you could look at as the biggest one, as in the most assets he gave up. Really, Hunter Skinner wasn't much like he wasn't gonna crack the Rangers lineup anytime soon. Sammy Blais was a roster player that the Rangers weren't really using. They had sent him down to the minors. I don't I don't think Drury's a bad GM. I just think he needs to swing for the fences finally. He needs to, you know, let go some of the prospects here. This is the opportunity. This is the time for him to do it. He had a chance to do it with Jack Eichel his first offseason, didn't do it. Had a chance to do it with Matthew Tkachuk in the 2022 offseason, didn't do it. Now he's got a chance to do it here with Brady Tkachuk or Jake Gensel. There's guys that are available in free agency, but he's got to make the necessary moves to clear the cap space and then go after those players. Recruit Gensel in free agency, maybe. I don't know. That could be a separate conversation. But one thing that I wanted to do, Actually, this is a good transition here. Matt says, "I saw Staple mention that teams could be interested in Trouba if the Rangers retain. They need to be all over this. I would retain 50% on him." Yeah, even Trouba at $4 million is fine because it's, you know, let's look and see what the Rangers have here in terms of cap space. I think he's only got 2 years left, Trouba. So this coming season and the 25-26 season, and then he's a UFA in 26-27. So if it's $4 million that they're holding on to, that's $4 million they could be using for somebody else, and that is very helpful. But speaking of Arthur Staple, he wrote an article, I believe, 2 weeks ago. Yes, 2 weeks ago, because Chris Drury had a press conference with media members, and this wasn't the meeting wasn't televised, of course, because the Rangers never do that with Drury and his press conferences unless it's, they're hiring a coach like they did last offseason with Laviolette. But one of the things that I wanted to touch on was Drury saying that nothing was off the table in terms of, the core of the Rangers. It's Zibanejad, Kreider, Panarin, and whoever the fourth guy is. I can't even think right now, man. Oh man, it's making me log in here. Come on. Give me a second. Uh, why is this taking so long? There it is. Okay. The big takeaway, one of the big takeaways was the core is not untouchable. Let's read the article here. So Drury could have shut down any talk. Might as well just screen share. Uh, let's do this here. Share screen. Boom. Okay. Let's see here. Core is not untouchable. Drury could have shut down any talk of moving one of the 11 Rangers who have been here at least 4 seasons, and you can throw Barclay Goodrow, Vincent Trocheck, and Braden Schneider in with that group too. But his mantra of, quote, "We're always looking for ways to improve," took on a slightly different meaning when asked directly if the Rangers are hoping to add to the core this offseason or willing to move someone from that core to make the team better. To me, nothing's off the table, Drury said. We're trying to reach the ultimate goal here. We're in the middle of that process now, trying to figure out what's next and what can we do to be better. There's different ways to get where you want to go. Further to that, Drury also said this: I do believe in our players individually. We have a lot of really good players here. A lot of players had great seasons. A number of them have been very good Rangers for a long time. Now's the part of the job to figure out if this group collectively can get us to where we want to be. That process is already underway and will continue throughout the offseason. So he sees it. We all see it. The Rangers were close, man. They were close. And it looked like Florida was just going to sweep the floor with Edmonton, but now Edmonton is making that a series, and that's actually honestly, it's a toss up now. It could go either way because McDavid is playing out of his mind right now. He's woken up since game 4 when they had that 8-goal barrage. But you look and see how close the Rangers were. Florida didn't really break a sweat. They haven't broken a sweat until you could argue until like right now. And then when they went down 2-1, went to overtime in game 4 against the Rangers. That's all. They've made it pretty easy thus far. And the Rangers are like they're that close. You could see that the Panthers were the better team, which shows you that the Rangers are not the better team and that they need to get better. So you need something. You can't just run it back and expect the same result because Florida seemed to make it easy. Even though it was pretty even, the series, Florida was clearly the better team. You need something to push you over the edge. You can't just keep settling on the same roster and keep running it back. You got to make a big change here. They already traded or got rid of Goodrow. Now is the time you got to swing for the fences, man. I was talking about it with Nick Rose, with my buddy Nick C Jets on YouTube. If you go back to previous off seasons, right? I mentioned Eichel in the 21 off season, heading into the 21-22 regular season. Gerard Gallant's first season as Rangers coach. Jack Eichel, when he was acquired, his first full season, not counting the 21-22 season because he came in halfway because of his neck surgery. Vegas allowed him to get that surgery. The first full year that he was with the Golden Knights, they won the Stanley Cup. The first full season, the following year, after the Panthers won the President's Trophy in 21-22, they got swept in the second round by the Lightning. They made the trade for Matthew Tkachuk in that ensuing offseason. Their first season with Matthew Tkachuk, they went to the Stanley Cup Finals. So the big fish that have been available in trades the past couple off seasons have been responsible for getting their teams to the Stanley Cup Finals. You can attribute them going to the finals to those acquisitions. You could certainly point to the Matthew Tkachuk acquisition as the reason for the prolonged success of the Panthers the past 2 seasons. Past 3, if you include that President's Trophy year, which was before the Tkachuk trade, of course. But you see what happens when you swing for the fences and make a splash, a difference maker acquisition. Maybe it doesn't happen in the first year like it did with Eichel. The Golden Knights didn't even make the playoffs. But had they had Eichel on their team the entire year, they probably do make the playoffs, and things might be different. Maybe they don't go to the finals because Colorado was great that year, but it starts there, you know? So you got to make the trade for the big fish. You can't just sit idly by because you look at the Rangers core and I don't think it's good enough to get them over the hump. You can't just run it back with them. I'm not saying trade every single player. No, I'm not saying trade Kreider, trade Zibanejad, trade Panarin, Trocheck, but I'm saying you need to go out and if a guy like Brady Tkachuk is available, you need to make every effort you can to go acquire him. Now, we don't know for sure if he is. I know Steve Staios, the general manager of the Senators, said that he isn't available and that the trade rumors are ridiculous, something like that along those lines. But on the off chance that he does become available, great fit for the Rangers. He's young, exactly what they need. A leader, forechecker, everything, everything. Same thing with a guy like Jake Gensel. If he hits the open market, say Carolina doesn't re-sign him, you need to make every effort you can, assuming you haven't already made a big splash. You need to make every effort to get that guy on the team. Because it's been too long since Kreider and Zibanejad have had a right winger. They need help. I know they need to pull their own weight, but 5'6", they're so close. 5'6" of the top 6, man. They are so close to figuring it out. And I don't want Patrick Kane. I don't think Patrick Kane is the answer there. I want a long-term solution there. We don't know how many years Patrick Kane has in him. Sure, maybe a 1 year stopgap, but it's enough is enough, man. We need a true top line right winger for Kreider and Zibanejad. I would have loved if Zuccarello could come back, but I don't think that's happening. I don't even think he's the answer anymore. It's got to be Gensel, Tkachuk, Stamkos, somebody like that. Maybe March or so. I don't know about him, but you have to clear salary cap space. You got to clear more because the Rangers have about $12.8 million in cap space, and they still have to re-sign Schneider, Lindgren if they want to. They're definitely not going to go with Roslovic Wenberg again. Maybe they keep Gustafsson. I don't want them to keep Gustafsson. They need to get another defenseman. They need to get 3 defensemen pretty much. Because if they just use Zach Jones next year, they have 4. Lindgren, Schneider, Gustafsson, Ruedel. They're all free agents, but they don't have to go on the open market here. Uh, when's the Kachuk video coming out? I should have it up this weekend. It's a long one to edit. I'll have it up. We also can't build a team around beating one team like Florida. We need well-rounded, pain in the ass players. I agree. Yeah, because you don't know if Florida's gonna make it every year. Injuries happen. Maybe somebody on the team, maybe Barkov goes down with a long-term injury and they're not able to recover from it. Or Kachuk goes down with an injury. Maybe Bobrovsky gets hurt and they can't recover from it. You never know. I'm not saying like, oh, hopefully they get injured. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you never know with how seasons transpire. They're long seasons, 82 games. You never know what can happen. Maybe Tampa Bay comes back and has a bounce back year. They've had 2 straight first round exits. Maybe they come back with a vengeance and, you know, get another run with their core. Maybe, I don't know, maybe New Jersey, now that they got Markstrom, maybe they're finally able to put it all together and be more consistent goaltending wise. But yeah, I agree. You can't build a team around beating one team. I'm just saying that a guy like Brady Tkachuk would solve a lot of issues with the Rangers. Number one, 5-on-5 scoring, and number two, that dreaded top line right wing spot. Both Eichel and Tkachuk were traded at 25 years, both before they entered their primes. When these players become available, you need to take advantage. Brady Tkachuk turns 25 in September. Yes. And another thing I don't think I pointed out in the Tkachuk video that will be coming out soon. Another thing is that his age, Brady Tkachuk, is closer to guys like Fox, Lafreniere. He's on the good side of he's on the younger side, right? So he's mid-20s. He's not late 20s, early 30s. You have him for an extra couple years to go along with the core of Fox and Lafreniere, you know. And then you have guys like Perreault and Othman coming up, and they're also in their early 20s. So you could build a team around that. That is a building block. That is another championship window there. If you could keep Shesterkin around, that would be great. Um, Yep, if he's available, the Rangers need to be all over him. Brady Tkachuk is one of the few players I'd break the bank for. Yes, and this is another thing that I have to say is that the Rangers shouldn't be holding on to assets this offseason. Everybody should be available. No one is safe. I mean, the way Drury got rid of Goodrow, like Brooks said, like I said in the beginning, savage, ruthless. No one is safe. It should be a message to everybody else. I know the guys like Zibanejad and Kreider or Panarin have like no movement clauses and they don't have to worry about that too much. But it's just a message that Drury is sending. Like, all right, if he's gonna do that, maybe they'll take away my ice time in the regular season, something like that. Maybe I won't play as much if they're that much into it. So I have to step it up. But that's a good thing. But speaking of replacement options for the Rangers, third line is gonna be an issue. I think the Rangers need to upgrade that third line. Chris Drury also talked in that article about internal options, right? And I'm gonna pull it up here in the article. Um, Internal preferences for some size and snarl. Let's share this here. Let's do it again. All right. Internal preferences for some size and snarl. There will always be free agents available who bring a bit of sandpaper to the lineup, but Drury has focused some drafting and a lot of development on making his team bigger and tougher. Yes, guys like Cooley, Rempe, Edstrom, Dylan Rubrick, he talks about here. Um, Adam Edstrom also looks like a candidate for a roster spot next season. Rubrick is going to turn pro after he spent a year in Oshawa. And then Brendan Othman and Brett Berard, the two most skilled forward prospects in Hartford this past season, both play with an edge for smaller guys. Yeah, so the size, I could care less about it. If they play the right way, that's great. I mean, like Zuccarello was 5 foot nothing, and he played like he was 6'5". Size means nothing. But anyways, that's an area where we have some good internal candidates, Drury said. Physical play in the regular season and physical play in the playoffs, especially as you advance, are two different animals. Yeah, 100%. You look at what Evander Kane did. What was it to Draisaitl in the finals? What Sam Bennett was doing? Like you become different players. Everything means more. So you turn it up. You dial it up to 15 to 20 on your scale. So you need to be physical in the playoffs. And what better way to do it than having cheap contracts on there too, giving an opportunity to your younger guys, see what they could do in the regular season, see if they work out. Ooh, that's a not so subtle reminder to some of the Rangers skilled core players that even though they went far this season, there's still some more fight needed to get all the way. Yeah. So it's a message. It's a message to the core of the Rangers that if these guys could play like that, you should absolutely be playing like that. I mean, we had our moments. Panarin was like that in the first round. Trocheck brought it up. He said, if Panarin's doing it, then I for sure as hell have to be doing it. Uh, Gabe Perreault should also be available in a Kachuk trade. We'd love to keep him, but there is no guarantee he becomes what Kachuk already is. Yeah. I wouldn't include Gabe Perreault in untouchables anymore. Done. If it's the right guy, if it's a guy like Kachuk, then yeah. Maybe in an Alex Tuck trade, I wouldn't trade him, but just the style that Kachuk plays, he always he always he always he's a Rangers killer, Brady Kachuk. Every time he plays the Rangers, he's always doing something. He's always involved somehow. He's had really big games against the Rangers. So, if you can't beat him, take him. So, I think the Rangers should put some thought into making a trade for Kachuk, but they would have to clear some salary cap space. Um, we could take a look at cap friendly, do an armchair GM. I'll show you what I was working on yesterday. But you can't, like I said, you can't run it back exactly with this roster. They already made the move with Goodrow, so they're gonna have to replace him somehow. You save salary cap space by having your younger guys come up, the entry level contracts, have as many of them as possible. You could even bring up defense, but like Matthew Robertson could play. That's fine. You could bring back a guy like Matt Hollowell as your seventh defenseman. I don't think he was horrible in preseason at least. I thought he was solid. But I know preseason, regular season playoffs, completely different animal. Yeah, you want to have more stability there, more of a veteran presence. I know guys like Zadorov are available in free agency. I think defensively, you could invest some money there. But third line, Victor Arvidsson. I don't know how I don't know how I feel with Kako running it back there again. I know defensively he's fine. He doesn't give up anything, but you need the third line to score. Look at Florida's third line, man. Lundell, Luosterainen, and Tarasenko. I believe that's the line. Unbelievable. Lundell is blossoming into a great player. Um, maybe not like a first line, a top six player, but great third line option for Florida. I think they struck gold with that pick. Great value there. Um, I think you should give an opportunity to guys like Berard, Othman, Rempe, Edstrom in the bottom six. Let's see the team you cooked up, Joe. GM mode D. All right. Let's do it. Let's do it. So this will be the ice cold take segment in honor of Cap Friendly going dark. Thank you, Washington Capitals, for taking this away from us. This great thing. Um, let's see here. Share my screen. All right. So this is the team that I have here. Right. So I re-signed Ryan Lindgren 1 year, $4 million. Braden Schneider got re-signed for 3 years, $3 million. I basically just gave him the exact same contract Lindgren got a couple off seasons ago. I don't know how realistic that is. Probably not realistic. I don't know. The Rangers are probably bridging him something along those lines. Maybe something like the Miller contract last summer. Brady Tkachuk, the trade here. This is what I did. I based it off of the Jack Eichel trade a couple seasons ago. If you don't remember that trade, it was Eichel and a third round pick for Alex Tuch, Peyton Krebs, a first and a second round pick. So I based it off of that. Heedle and Tuch, I talk about this in the Kachuk video. Heedle and Tuch are very similar production wise for this point in their careers. At their age 24 seasons, excuse me. At this point, with Alex Tuch had about, I forget what it was. I don't know. It's the same amount of points. It was 144 points, I believe, with the Golden Knights, and then Philip Heedle's got 139, but he's played about like 50 to 75 games more than Tuch did at that point in his career. So you don't compare Heedle to Tuch right now because Tuch blows Heedle out of the water. You compare Tuch to Heedle when Tuch was the same age as Heedle. You understand? So when Tuch was 24, what was his production like? How is he progressing in the NHL? Very similar. They also had similar salaries, not in terms of the length on the contract. I believe Tuch's was longer at the time. He had more years left. Heedle only has three years left now. Dylan Garand, that is a big prospect. That would be a huge prospect for the Ottawa Senators. They have zero goaltending. Zero. None in their system. They have the 31st ranked prospect pool, according to Scott Wheeler. They need something big. You know, Dylan Garand is no joke. I know he was like a mid to late round pick, not like a first round selection. But if it's one thing that the Senators could use with that defense they have guys like Chabot, Brandstrom, Jake Sanderson, Jacob Chikrin. Their defense is pretty solid. If they get a good goaltender, they might become more of a defensive team than an offensive team. I know they have Stützle, they have Kachuk on there right now, Batherson, Drew is still playing. But in that division, maybe it helps to become more of a defensive team. It might work out for them, but a goalie like that is a can't miss. They don't have a goalie that anywhere close to that caliber. I bet you if they acquired him and started playing him right away, he'd be immediately better than what they've had the past couple seasons. In his first year, first games, already better than what they have. And then of course you're getting a first and a third round pick. I downgraded the second to a third because the Rangers don't have second round picks in either the next two drafts. I believe actually either of the next three drafts. Where do I go? Yeah. 24, 25, 26. They don't have any second round picks. Remember they traded it in the Nemeth trade. So because the Rangers aren't getting that third that Buffalo gave to Vegas, we'll give a third to Ottawa if we're going by comparison. Also, I re-signed Matthew Robertson to his qualifying offer. So there's $376,000 in cap space on my projected roster here. So I have VZ as the 13th forward. I wanted to get Berard in there so bad. I just couldn't do it. I like this lineup here, but at the same time, I think that third line is pretty weak. I don't like Brodzinski there, and I don't like Kakko there. Othman, I would love to see how he plays. I need a little bit more, like, from a center. I don't know what guy is worth it to go out and acquire, like, as a third line center, who's worth it to give money to in free agency. Right wing, like Victor Arvidsson, yeah, maybe you could do something like that. If you get rid of Trouba's salary, then you replace him with Robertson and you get a seventh defenseman, or you just sign a better defenseman in free agency, like Zadorov. Let's say you trade Trouba at $4 million retained, and then you sign Zadorov for $4 million 1 year, something like that. There you go. That's your replacement, even replacement, and then you keep Robertson as your seventh defenseman, and that would work. There's there's the defense. You just need forward. So maybe you trade Kako, free up $2.4 million, but is that going to be enough to fill in two lineup spots there? I don't know, man. I don't know. Like if you replace Kako and Brodzinski, that's what is that? Like 3.1, almost $3.2 million. Can you get two players with that to fit the third line? I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah, that's what I mean. The third line ain't looking great. Someone like a Teddy Bluger could fill in as a 3C, even though I think he would slot in better as a 4C. That Bluger was another one I was thinking of. Kevin Stenlin from the Panthers, also a guy I was thinking about. The thing is, I don't think they're third line guys. I want a little bit more. That's why I'm looking at this third line like, man, this is not good enough, man. Like, what happens if the top six goes cold? What happens in the playoffs? I like the idea of having Othman and Berard there, but I don't know, man. Need a better third line center. I don't think this free agency is good enough to find a third line center. Maybe you go out and you trade Kako for Yanni Gord or something like that. That would be good, and then you'd have something like Othman. If you keep Brodzinski, you keep him on the wing. Othman, Gord, and Brodzinski, or Othman, Gord, Berard. Othman, Gord, VZ. I don't know, man. Something like that. But I'm not sold on this third line. Top six, absolutely love it. Kreider's advantage at Brady Tkachuk, love it. Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere, absolutely, of course. Defense, the way I have it here, I don't like I said, I don't like Trouba there. Schneider and Jones, fine. If you do Miller and Schneider, right, and then you get Nikita Zadorov. I don't know if Zadorov is right-handed. I should probably check that. Um, is he right-handed? See, no, he's lefty. That's not gonna work. Too many left defensemen here. Unless one of those guys could play. Unless Zadorov could play on the right side, then I don't know, man. I wouldn't mind Schneider, Miller running it back, then Lindgren, Fox. If you trade Lindgren, let's say you trade his rights, then you could free it. You don't have to give that $4 million here. That's $4 million you could use on somebody else. There's not. I haven't done enough digging on third line centers in preparation for this show. So I don't know about him. I don't know about that. But Yanni Gord is the only one I can think of right now as who's worth making an acquisition for a third line center. If anyone has like any suggestions in the comments or wants to bring one up to me, I will gladly take a look right now before I end it. But that Brady Tkachuk video is coming out, guys. Don't worry. It's a long video, so a lot of editing to do. I made some nice graphics. It's gonna look all nice and pretty, all decked out. Not like a typical Ice Cold Takes podcast video where it's just the stream, no editing. There was a lot to this one. So I'm putting a lot of work into it. So we'll see what the Rangers do. Again, ballsy move by Chris Drury to waive Barclay Goodrow, even though pretty obvious that he wouldn't want to go to a team like San Jose. But he got rid of the full contract. And the last thing I'll say, I remember when the Rangers signed Goodrow to that contract, and I remember everybody was saying that it was going to be very difficult, almost impossible to move it. And then there was people saying, no, it won't. There's going to be NHL GMs that like that stuff. What do you know? What do you know, man? There's always NHL GMs that love intangibles. That's how it works, and that's what you can take advantage of. I know statistically and analytically, it wouldn't make sense for a GMs to do that, to take it on for free without getting anything in return. But you got to remember, not everybody is on board with analytics yet. Not everybody is fully embraced the analytics community, like the analytics side of hockey. Not to say like there's bad people in the analytics community. I'm just saying like not everybody has fully grasped the concept yet. So they're still thinking with that old school mentality of I need a leader, I need a good presence for these young guys, a mentor. Here, I need intangibles in the locker room or the dressing room, whatever you call it. So, of course, there's always going to be GMs like that. As long as analytics is not the default narrative, then there's always going to be a way to move guys like that. You know? That's how I look at it as. I didn't think that was possible, waiving Goodrow and having him be claimed by another team. But alas, anything is possible. So that was a very gutsy move. We'll see what happens with Jacob Trouba. We'll see what happens with the rest of the restricted free agents. Rangers still have to try and get a contract extension with Shesterkin before the season, sooner rather than later. They gotta make a big move though. I think that's priority number one, and priority number two is getting Shesterkin locked up. Then fill out the rest of the team. If you can move Trouba's salary, as much of it as you can, that would be great. I would rather it not be a buyout because the Rangers have only had it just a couple years now without any buyout penalties after having so many years of just constantly having buyout penalties. Let's not do that again. Try and move the guy. If you can't retain 50%, it's only 2 years. We'll take it. Invest it in a replacement defenseman for him. Fine. We'll take it. But you gotta make a big move, Chris Drury, and I think he's the guy to do it. He has yet to release a big trade like where he's rattling out like a Glenn Sather like trade where he's trading NHL talent and his prospects and picks all at the same time for one player. He hasn't had a major blockbuster trade yet. He's held on to his assets. He's held firm, steady with his assets. So we'll see what he does. I think this is the year for him to do it. This is the offseason for him to do it. It's gotta come. It's gotta come this year. That's my ice cold take. And that's how we're ending the stream. Thanks everybody for watching, listening on Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. I'll see you guys next time.